This is deep Sapiens, where every strange thing you do has an ancient explanation. Today, why a sealed metal box can make a grown adult forget how to be a person. You step into an elevator. Someone else is already inside. The doors close. And without thinking about it, you turn to face the doors, fix your eyes on the floor numbers, and stand in total silence. You do this every time. So does everyone else. But why? You've never been taught this rule. No one sat you down and explained elevator etiquette. And yet you follow it perfectly, every single time, alongside total strangers who are following the exact same invisible script. That's strange. That should bother you more than it does. The real answer is far stranger than simple politeness. What's happening in that elevator isn't etiquette. It's a piece of ancient survival programming, still running in your brain, in a box that didn't exist for 99% of human history. Your brain evolved to read threat in open spaces, with room to retreat. It did not evolve for sealed metal boxes shared with unfamiliar bodies at unfamiliar distances. And it is improvising, badly, the moment those doors shut. Start with distance. Anthropologist Edward Hall spent years studying how humans manage space around other humans, and in the 1960s he gave it a name, proxemics. Hall mapped distinct zones around the human body. Intimate distance, reserved for people you trust completely. Personal distance, for friends and familiar faces. Social distance, for acquaintances and colleagues. And public distance, for strangers and crowds. An elevator destroys all of it at once. Strangers are forced into intimate or personal distance, close enough to smell, close enough to touch, with people they've never met and may never see again. Your nervous system doesn't know this is temporary. It only knows the spacing is wrong. Dangerously wrong, by ancestral standards. For most of human history, anyone standing this close was either family or a threat. There was no third category. No one stood 18 inches from a total stranger for 60 seconds, then walked away unaffected. That option didn't exist on the savannah. It only exists now, in steel boxes, dozens of times a day, in cities most of your ancestors couldn't have imagined. So your body responds the only way it knows how. It scans. It tenses. It looks for an exit, even when it knows there's only one door and it's already closed. Now add eye contact. Researchers studying gaze behavior, including work building on psychologist Michael Argyle's studies of eye contact and social signaling, found something consistent across cultures. Prolonged eye contact between strangers is read as either a threat or an invitation. There is rarely a polite middle ground. Brief eye contact signals acknowledgement. Held eye contact signals something is starting, and your ancient brain wants to know which. In an elevator, you cannot politely look away across a room. You cannot create distance. You're trapped in a box with someone whose intentions you cannot read, and the easiest way to avoid an unwanted threat or invitation signal is to look at literally anything else. Floor numbers. Your phone. The illuminated panel above the door. Anywhere but their eyes. This is why the elevator floor display exists in the design it does. It's not just functional. It's a designated place to look that lets two strangers share 3 feet of space without ever confronting what their eyes might accidentally say to each other. Here's the part that should genuinely surprise you. This behavior isn't only human. Primatologist Franz de Waal has spent decades studying social hierarchy and tension management in primates, and one pattern shows up again and again. When unfamiliar primates are forced into close proximity, they reduce direct eye contact, minimize movement, and avoid behaviors that could be read as challenges. They wait it out. Quietly. Until the pressure of forced closeness ends. Sound familiar? You are doing primate de-escalation behavior in a Otis elevator on your way to a dentist appointment. Your brain is running a script written for entirely different stakes, in an entirely different world, and it does not know the difference between a stranger who might attack and a stranger who just wants to get to the fourth floor. There's also the matter of silence, and why breaking it feels so loud. Sociologist Irving Goffman wrote extensively about what he called civil inattention. The practice of acknowledging someone's presence just enough to show you register them as a person, while signaling you have no further interest in interacting. A glance. A small nod. Then nothing. Elevators are civil inattention under extreme pressure. The space is too small to ignore someone, and too small to comfortably engage them either. So you split the difference. You acknowledge them by not looking. You signal respect by saying nothing at all. Notice something else. The smaller the elevator, the more uncomfortable it feels. The more strangers it holds, the more tension rises with each new body, right up until it's crowded enough that you mentally classify everyone as one undifferentiated group instead of individuals you must individually navigate. Ever notice how a packed elevator somehow feels less personally awkward than one with just two people? That's not random. Your brain stops tracking individuals and starts tracking a crowd, which requires far less threat assessment per person. Two strangers is the worst configuration. Just two. Enough to require individual social processing. Not enough to dissolve into a crowd. Maximum discomfort, minimum information. Now think about what you actually do with your hands in an elevator. You check your phone. You adjust your bag strap. You retie a shoelace that didn't need retying. Psychologists who study self-soothing behavior describe this as displacement activity, meaningless physical actions that occupy the body and reduce visible anxiety when a person feels observed but has no acceptable way to act on that feeling. Animals groom themselves under stress for the same reason. You check a phone with no new notifications for the same reason. You're not bored in that elevator. You're managing forced proximity with a stranger using the only socially acceptable tools available to you: stillness, silence, and a screen to look busy with. Here is the twist that makes all of this worth thinking about. This entire response, every part of it, is running completely beneath your awareness. You don't consciously decide to face the doors. You don't consciously decide where your eyes go. Your ancestral threat detection system makes these calls in milliseconds, long before the rational part of your brain even registers that anything happened. You think you're just being polite. You're actually running a 6-million-year-old proximity protocol, repurposed in real time for a box that's existed for less than 200 years. And here's where it gets personal. This isn't only about elevators. Think about the last time you sat next to a stranger on a plane and immediately put in headphones. Think about a crowded subway car where everyone finds a way to look at nothing. Think about a waiting room where every chair gets chosen for maximum distance from every other occupied chair, like magnets repelling each other in a predictable, invisible pattern. You are constantly negotiating ancient spatial rules in a modern world that keeps cramming you closer to strangers than your biology was ever built to handle. Every single day, in elevators, subways, waiting rooms, packed sidewalks, you are running social software that was never updated for the environment you actually live in. So the next time those doors close and you find yourself staring at the numbers tick upward, know what's actually happening. That isn't awkwardness. That isn't bad manners. That's a survival system, inherited across hundreds of thousands of years, doing exactly what it was built to do: watching a stranger, managing a threat, and waiting, patiently, for the doors to open again.